General Hospital. The rise of Drew Kane, from hero to monster. When the walls of power crumble, what emerges is rarely redemption, it's transformation, often brutal, often irreversible. In Port Charles, where every handshake hides a secret and every deal carries blood under its seal, Drew Kane is standing on the edge of that transformation. Once seen as a man trying to rebuild his life and legacy, Drew's descent has begun. The Quartermain mansion was supposed to be his ultimate victory, a crown atop the ashes of his past failures. Instead, it may become the spark that turns him into something far darker, a man consumed by vengeance, pride, and humiliation. It began with triumph. Drew had maneuvered himself into what seemed like an unshakable position, the proud owner of the iconic Quartermain estate. When Veronica, Ronnie, Bard, the cunning older socialite who held the property in her grasp, agreed to sell, Drew believed the Quartermain dynasty would finally bow to him. Around town, his confidence became arrogance, his charm turned venomous. He strutted through the corridors of Port Charles with the kind of swagger that only fools mistake for security. To him, he had won. He had conquered the family that had never fully accepted him. What he didn't know was that victory built on deceit rarely lasts long. Behind the curtain of his ambition, a storm was already brewing. Tracy Quartermain, ever the strategist, began to suspect that Monica's original will had been tampered with. In a world where legacies are rewritten with ink and lies, Tracy's intuition became the ticking clock to Drew's downfall. Her discovery of Monica's true intentions was more than a revelation, it was a reckoning. Monica hadn't left the mansion to Ronnie. The estate, the very soul of the Quartermain empire, was meant to remain with Tracy. Every signature Drew had waved in triumph, every boast he'd whispered to those who feared his rise, it was all a lie waiting to collapse in front of the entire town. But fate, as always in Port Charles, didn't stop at humiliation, it demanded chaos. As the estate's documents moved closer to the final sale, a shadow figure known as Outback stepped into the frame, an opportunist, a manipulator, and perhaps Drew's most dangerous mirror. When Ronnie hesitated to finalize the deal, Outback saw his chance and stole the estate papers, igniting a scandal that spread faster than gossip could carry it. What was once a quiet business arrangement became a public spectacle. Rumors twisted through the Quartermain corridors, and suddenly everyone had an opinion on Drew's betrayal, Ronnie's greed, and Tracy's vengeance. Drew, of course, refused to lose control. He pushed, threatened, negotiated, but desperation has a smell, and the sharks of Port Charles can always sense blood in the water. Every move he made to fix the situation only made it worse. When he tried to corner Ronnie into signing, her fear of exposure froze her hand. When he sought help from his allies, doors began to close. His empire, built on bluff and bravado, was collapsing from within. And at the heart of it all was Tracy, walking calmly into the chaos, armed with Monica's true will and the cold confidence of a woman who's seen men like Drew destroy themselves before. The day Tracy revealed Monica's real intentions will be remembered as one of the defining moments in Quartermain history. The confrontation wasn't loud, but it was lethal. One document, one revelation, and the illusion shattered. Drew's so-called ownership of the mansion was nothing but smoke, a transaction born of deceit. The property would revert to Tracy, as Monica had always wanted. Drew wasn't a master of legacy, he was its latest victim. And yet, as the walls of that grand house closed against him, something in Drew broke loose. Grief didn't touch him. Shame didn't reach him. What replaced it was something primal, a fury that burned deeper than humiliation. For years, he had fought for recognition, for a sense of belonging. The Quartermaines never fully accepted him, and now they had taken back what he thought was his. To Drew, it wasn't just about property, it was about power, identity, and revenge. Losing the mansion didn't just strip him of wealth, it stripped him of self-worth. And from that emptiness, a monster began to form. In the following days, Port Charles began to whisper. Drew was seen alone, more often in the shadows than in daylight. Business associates reported strange behavior, aggressive, erratic, almost unhinged. Some said he had begun assembling a quiet army of loyalists, people disillusioned by the Quartermaines' influence. Others claimed he was digging through old family records, looking for something darker, leverage, blackmail, perhaps even secrets buried with Monica herself. Whatever his plan, it wasn't redemption. It was retaliation. Tracy, though victorious, felt the chill of what she'd unleashed. She had reclaimed her family home, yes, but in doing so, she had reignited the kind of fire that could consume more than just one man's pride. Drew knew how to manipulate people, how to twist loyalty into weapons. His next moves would be careful, calculated, cruel. No longer the soldier searching for peace, he was now a strategist hunting for weakness. And in Port Charles, there are always weaknesses. Ronnie, meanwhile, found herself cornered by the very deal she'd made. Her name, her reputation, and even her safety were now in question. Drew had every reason to silence her, and she knew it. What began as a profitable arrangement now felt like a death sentence. Her hesitation to sign had exposed her, and her betrayal of both Drew and Tracy made her a liability to everyone. Her days of manipulation were numbered, and the only thing more dangerous than Drew's anger was his patience. In the weeks that followed, Drew's transformation became impossible to ignore. The warmth that once defined him, the humanity he clung to even in his darkest hours, began to fade. The community he once protected now became a chessboard, and every piece was a target. He started with financial strikes. Companies tied to the Quartermaines saw their deals vanish, their investors vanish, their credibility questioned. Drew's fingerprints were invisible, but his intent was unmistakable. He was dismantling the family, one quiet move at a time. But vengeance has a cost, and Port Charles has a memory. For every person Drew punished, two more began to suspect him. The monster he was becoming could no longer hide behind his past as a hero or a victim. He was crossing into territory once reserved for men like Cyrus Renaud or Victor Cassadine, figures who believed destruction was the purest form of justice. And Drew, blinded by betrayal, began to believe the same. In the final act of his downfall, Drew returned to the Quartermaine mansion one last time. Not to reclaim it, but to make sure no one else could. The grand estate that had once symbolized family, heritage, and power now represented everything he had lost. As he stood before its gates, the wind carrying the echoes of all the lives shattered within its walls, Drew smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. If he couldn't own the Quartermain mansion, no one would. What happened next remains shrouded in mystery, but that night, lights flickered across the property, alarms rang, and by dawn, the mansion that had stood for generations bore the marks of its own curse, a legacy scorched by pride and revenge. Port Charles will never look at Drew Kane the same way again. His descent isn't just about losing a home, it's about what happens when a man built on second chances decides there won't be a third. Once a soldier, once a savior, now a monster of his own making, Drew stands as a warning to everyone in town. Power without purpose corrupts absolutely, and vengeance, once unleashed, doesn't stop at its first victim. And as Tracy surveys her reclaimed estate, as Ronnie hides from the ghosts of her choices, and as the Quartermains brace for whatever comes next, one question lingers in the smoke and silence. If this is only the beginning of Drew's darkness, how much more of Port Charles will burn before he's done?